Previously on Spenelli Speaks. But I'm going to finish it, I swear!
Know you've been a good friend, been there through the thick and thin, and I know it's never gonna end, 'cause you've been a good friend.
Hi everyone, Dani here. Welcome back to my channel. Today is the start of another vlog that is specifically for one book that I am reading. You may have recently seen that I did a vlog of my reading of Nancy Drew, and this vlog is going to be about Anne of Green Gables. Now this is the first time I'm ever reading Anne of Green Gables, though I am a little familiar with the story vaguely, just kind of what it's about. Not the full series, of course, but the very first book I'm a little familiar with Anne herself. Now, if you are new here, please feel free to click that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you can see all of my videos. I post every Tuesday and Saturday. These vlogs are a little bit new. I decided to do Nancy Drew and Anne of Green Gables because they were two of my anticipated reads during March, and I thought I would dedicate a little bit more time to their reading. Now, I have started Anne of Green Gables. I listened to it on my way to work a couple of days ago, and then I found my place in the physical copy, and I'm about 34 pages in chapter 3. So Marilla, who is going to be Anne's guardian with her brother Matthew, has just met Anne, and it's a surprise because when they were looking to take on a child, they wanted a boy for various reasons, help around the farm, that kind of thing. And they got Anne, who is quite obviously a girl. So we have that gender disappointment happening there. And that, first and foremost, really was like, oh. And we know that this is part of the story, and we I think come to learn that everyone comes to love Anne and are so happy that it happened the way it happened. But it takes you for a loop a little bit as a first-time reader, how intent on having a boy they were, and the way in which they talk about getting a boy. And it hurts my heart to know that in history, people were adopting or fostering children simply on the fact of they just needed help around the house or whatever. And they'll school them and they'll give them a great place to live. But in a lot of cases, that was not the case. And if you follow my channel, you know I have read a couple of books surrounding orphans, orphanages, that kind of thing. All fictional, of course. For instance, Orphan Train I read, and that is a U.S. Fictional account of children coming from the New York area into the Midwest. And there's a lot of sad stories in that where children are abused or are used for just farming and whatnot, and it's really sad. And then with Anne of Green Gables, which takes place in Canada, I also read another book, which I cannot think of the name of the book, so I may put it here for you. But that was a Canadian account of a child put into the orphanage system, and quite like how it's described in Anne of Green Gables, I believe they're called sanatoriums or asylums, where these children were kept. And not that in Anne of Green Gables it mentions any bad things that happen. She actually talks about how it was nice. But in the book that I read, not a good situation, especially if you were a female. You know, there were a lot of attempts of molestation, and some that were not attempts, but actually, anywho. So what has led me in this beginning reading, it's triggered a lot of those thoughts and memories of reading those other books. I believe even House on the Cerulean Sea kind of nods a little bit to the Canadian orphanage system. It's making me want to read something nonfiction about the Canadian orphanage system and even the US orphanage system, and not so much currently, but back in the late 1800s to 1900s into World War II. Because I think there's a lot to be said about that time era and how children were treated. Children just flat out abandoned. And it's churning a lot of interest. So I might have to look into that. But on a lighter note, I didn't mean to get so deep right away in this vlog. I'm only 34 pages into this book. But on a lighter note, the book is interesting. Like I said, it's triggering a lot of interest outside of just this fictional account. Anne is very talkative. She's definitely someone that I would probably be at arm's length for a while until I got to know her, because she does talk an awful lot. I like Matthew because he doesn't talk very much, so you can tell he has a very kind heart. Marilla, I think we're gonna probably warm up to her. The nosy neighbor, I wonder how much she's gonna impact the story. But I do like the idea of Anne coming in and potentially opening these two, Marilla and Matthew's, eyes to the fact that even though they wanted a boy, they may very well be happy with Anne as a girl. So hopefully that's part of the story. I would hate for that to be a thing throughout, but pretty good so far, and I'm going to get to more of this. I might interchange reading it physically and listening to the audiobook. The audiobook that I am listening to is really nice. I like hearing Anne talk because she talks an awful lot. So the audiobook gives a voice to Anne, the inflection, her happiness, her sadness. So I like that about the audiobook. And not that I couldn't imagine that for myself with the physical book, but the audiobook is nice to really help solidify those feelings. So right now, she has just kind of gotten the impression that Matthew and Marilla really wanted a boy. So she's devastated, of course. And you can really feel that in the audiobook. So I'm going to interchange them as I go, and then I'll keep you in the loop of all of my feelings. Hi, friends. I have been doing some reading in our book here, Anne of Green Gables, and I've been going back and forth between the audio and reading it physically. And I have to say I am enjoying it. So I think in my earlier clip I just mentioned that I only had read a couple of chapters. I wasn't very far in. Right now I am up to chapter 15. So quite a few more chapters since the last time I checked in. The first time I think we just met everyone, and then since then a lot has happened. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot has been said. Anne Shirley has got a mouth. Man, she is a non-stop chatterbox, which cracks me up to a certain extent, because if you are familiar with children of this age, 11, some are super chatty, like Anne, and some are super quiet. So she is just exacerbating is the word I'm thinking, because I feel like I resonate with Marilla because I have those crotchety moments of just this kid won't stop talking. Why is she talking so much? So I like all of the characters so far. I do like Marilla a lot. I feel like she's me to a certain extent, where she has this idea of what a lady should be and what society looks like. And, you know, she's strict in what she has, but she definitely has a heart where, you know, this young lady, this Anne Shirley, has come and is just kind of melting it a little bit. So I really like that. And of course I love Matthew. Matthew is just so kind, and I just love how he listens to Anne and he brings her chocolates, and it's just super cute. And I do like Anne. When I first was getting to know her, I was like, is this kid gonna be super annoying? Am I not gonna like Anne Shirley? Am I gonna really make a lot of people on BookTube really mad at me? But now that I've gone farther in, she definitely is very endearing. She can be annoying at times as an adult reader. You know, she talks a lot. But I think what's so interesting about her is that she reminds you of your childhood, of the imagination and the wanting to explore. When she talks about her day with her friend Diana, where they make like a little fort or homestead, and they have broken dishes, but they're pretending that they're whole, and they find some glass and they think it's fairy glass. And I remember those days. I remember when my brothers and I used to go out into the woods or into the fields, and we'd find like bushes, and then we'd crawl in the bushes, and then it would be our fortress. And even though there was nothing there but sticks and buds, you would just imagine all of these different possibilities. And I think that's why this character is so lovable, because she reminds you of you when you were a kid, regardless of how your childhood happened. We all had an imagination. We all, you know, if we were stuck inside when it was raining, we had an imagination. We thought of things to do, and I just love that. I don't know how kids do it today with all of the, you know, tablets and electronics and technology. I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't have that kind of stuff. So we had way more time to imagine things. And I think that's why she doesn't bother me as much, because the things that she is doing, I'm remembering my own childhood and doing those same things. So I really like that about her. Now, as an adult, I'm still like, oh boy, here we go with her, oh this and oh that. But she's just so cute. And you just imagine her physically in front of you, going through these motions, having all of these firsts happen, and oh, I just can't imagine. Oh, and I wouldn't trade this life for it with an angel, or whatever she says. She's so exuberant and so positive for the life she has lived thus far. It's refreshing to see this child who has not had the greatest upbringing, but just to be so happy. The last chapter that I read, if you're familiar with Anne of Green Gables, or if you're not, this will be a spoiler-ish kind of comment, but the brooch, Marilla's brooch, had gone missing, and the whole time it was missing, I was like, oh, I bet she didn't take it. I bet she's just saying this when she confesses, because I'm like, kids do this all the time. They think you want to hear what they tell you what you want to hear, and I'm like, oh, I know she didn't take it. There's no, like, because in the beginning of the book we know that she's honest. She doesn't lie. She is honest. But we also know that she is a people pleaser to a certain extent. So when Marilla says, you're not leaving this room until you confess, when she told the story, I was like, I bet that's not what happened. So when it all came out that it was simply misplaced, I was like, oh, I knew it. So I was really happy she was still able to get to the picnic, because, oh my goodness, poor kid. But So where I'm at right now, like I said, I'm up to chapter 15, and that's about 145 pages in. My copy of the book is 426 pages. So I'm not quite yet to the halfway point, but this read is super easy, like physically. So I've been able to get through a lot of it physically. And then when I've just been doing stuff around the house, I put it on audio and then just moved my marker to where it is. But so far, I'm really liking the read. I love everyone in this. I think from what I recall of just knowing odds and ends, I think there's going to be some more characters introduced, which will cause a little bit of mayhem. But overall, I am enjoying the Cuthberts. I think that's their last name. And Anne, I love how she calls herself Anne of Green Gables. I love how homesteads had names. Like, I just love that. I wish my name, well, people call my house the Goldenrod House, so I guess I'm Dani of Goldenrod House. So anywho, yeah, I'm surprised. I really thought that I would be like eye-rolly, regular Dani, poo-pooing on, you know, everyone's favorite classics books. But so far, I'm pleasantly surprised at how much I am enjoying the read. Not only the style of writing, but the characters themselves. I'm very surprised. So thank you for everyone who has told me inadvertently to read this book. Hi friends. Just hanging out in the nursery, and I thought I would touch base with you and tell you a little bit more about where I am in my reading of Anne of Green Gables. I'm a little bit past the halfway point, and that is chapter 22. And I've been liking this book. This girl, let me tell you, she is something else. She is so... what is the proper word? She is so over the top, like has a very exaggerated personality, which is not a bad thing. I'm not like putting it down or anything. I think for the people of Avonlea, it's waking them up a little bit. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But it seems like some of the people that she meets and whom she then later calls her kindred spirits, it seems like she's hitting some nerve within them that wakes them up. I don't know if that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong for those of you who have read this and I know have read the whole series, but she's just really someone who awakens spirit in others, I guess, because she's just so emotional and finds positivity in everything. I mean, the way that she describes the earth is just really interesting. I would highly recommend always reading this book in the springtime. I think Montgomery does a really good job of describing the world through the child's eyes, which I think is really great in a sense that it doesn't feel childish, but it feels more like mystifying. Like when you look outdoors, do you look at every little thing, the bark on a tree, the buds of a flower? Do you rename things? You know, when she is renaming everything in Avonlea, it is something that you don't think of when you're an adult. So I think she does a really good job of capturing a child's spirit, and it's just really, it's really enjoyable to read. yeah, so I'm still liking everyone. The Gilbert thing cracks me up because it just is that age-old tale of a boy pulling a girl's pigtails because they like him. And you can tell that he really likes her and he's trying his darndest to like get back on her good side, and she is just not having it, which I think is hilarious because good for you. Like, she's not interested in boys. And not because they have cooties or anything, but she's just being a kid. She's just being a kid, and her main concerns in life are to have a home, to be friends with Diana and others, of course, find her kindred spirits, and of course, she wants to grow up to be beautiful because she is a bit vain. I always love when they talk about her red hair, and don't worry, you might grow up to have auburn hair. So, yeah, it's a good book. So like I said, I'm to the halfway point, or a little bit past the halfway point. I will probably read some more today and check in with you. I'll probably check in with you 2 more times before the end of this vlog. So, yeah, quite enjoying myself. Hi, friends. So in the last clip, I'm pretty sure I said that I would probably come back and tell you about Anne of Green Gables 2 more times. Well, I kind of finished the book. And I'm wearing all my green because Anne of Green Gables. I really like this book. And I'm actually really surprised, like really surprised at how much I love this book. Now, I wouldn't say like I was as excited as some other 5-star reads that I've had. But I am going to give this book a 5-star because I really do think that it deserves it. Because it is a book that I feel touches the hearts of everyone that reads it. I think you can read this as a child, you can read this as an adult, and you still get some kind of really amazing emotions. In the beginning, you know, it made me think about a lot of real world issues. So for me, as someone who likes to read and learn at the same time, it was able to harness that, and I'm excited to take that next step as far as learning more about, you know, young people and orphan status and all of that, not only within Canada where this takes place, but also in the US. But it also just touches your heart in so many ways as far as, you know, the compassion and empathy and just passion in general that is in this book. We see so many characters, and even though it is not, you know, you don't have different perspectives in different chapters, this is written in 3rd person, but you still get a good idea of their personalities, which I think is really great. I personally, and I don't know if anyone else shares this, but it's definitely for me, I resonate so closely to Marilla. Like, at the beginning, I was like, oh, is she gonna be really rude and cruel throughout the book? And to be honest, I am Marilla. Like, I am hardcore Marilla. You know, I have fun on my channel, and I do fun things, and it's exciting to be in front of the camera and talking to you. But in most cases, I am kind of like a stoic, kind of subtle personality most of the time until I'm engaged in something, and then I usually pep up and have a very exaggerated personality, kind of like Anne. But Marilla really resonated with me because she has these moral ideals. She is a little strict. She has this way about her where she has certain expectations of what the world is supposed to be and how Anne is supposed to act and how people are supposed to interact in society. And she holds herself very closely, bound. And that's me. I really liked her. Like, I was just like so blown away by how similar she and I are. Now, I think I'm a little more open-minded, of course, but considering the time, but yeah. So that was kind of like my overall conclusion. Really loved the book. Definitely warmed up to Anne. I know in the beginning she just would not stop talking, but you can see as she grows in the book that though she is still talkative, what she is saying is more meaningful, and she has matured quite a bit by the end of the book, so much so. And I just loved seeing that happen, seeing her prove her worth without having to try. She just was herself. Like, she just was herself throughout the whole book, and showed that it's okay to be a girl, and it's okay to be talkative and imaginative. And it was so nice to just see her be herself. It was really awesome. And the thing with Gilbert now, I have heard a lot of people consider Gilbert their like fictional boyfriend, and I was like, that's from Anne of Green Gables. Like, how is that? And understanding that it continues forward, so I'm sure he pops up quite a bit. It kind of reminds me of Laura Ingalls Wilder. What is it? Little House on the Prairie. Isn't it Alfonso? Like, is a similar kind of character where they meet at school and then they end up getting married or something. I can't remember. I haven't read that book in ages. But Gilbert, immediately he likes her. He finds her interesting. And then it just develops, but she is so set on just never saying his name. And then at the very end, sorry, spoilers, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you've read this, that they finally shake hands and say they're gonna be friends after like 5 years of just him trying so hard to, like, in the background be like, oh, you're so awesome, Anne, like, supportive. Like, anytime he would smile at her, she was just like, oh, he's making fun of me. And realistically, he was probably just really proud of her or happy for her. And so it just cracks me up, that little tryst or whatever you want to call it. But I have a feeling that's going to develop quite a bit more later in the books, which at the beginning of this vlog I said I probably won't read any more of these, but considering I have access to all of them on audiobook, I might actually continue on in the series, which is so crazy because I have a really hard time with books that are recommended to me, or books that have a lot of hype, or books that like a lot of people like. For some reason, I'm always adverse. I'm always like on the opposite side, and I always feel bad because I'm like, oh, like this is everyone's treasured book. And I'm not saying that it's one of my like, oh, I love, I'm not to that extent. But it is definitely understandable why people love this book. So yeah, it was so good. All of her mistakes that she makes, like putting the wrong, like not putting vanilla, but some kind of like medicine in a cake, and all the things that she has done, starching handkerchiefs, and it's a very endearing read. If you haven't read this already and you like olden day reads with a female protagonist who is just out of this world when it comes to talking. I mean, she is a talker, but very enthusiastic, very positive, then it's definitely something that I would recommend looking into. I will say I was very, very sad. And again, this is a huge spoiler, so please stop if you haven't. But when Matthew passed, I almost cried, but thankfully the way in which it was written, it just moved forward, and it dwell on that moment. But I just, I had no idea that that was going to happen in this first book. I thought he would have a scare of some kind because it kept coming up a little bit. But yeah, that was so sad. He was one of my favorites, like just because he was just so kind and loving and unconditionally so. He was just a great character. So yeah, so I'm pretty pleased with my reading of this. I'm super happy that I found this book for $1 at the dollar store in one of these Pantone Classic editions, which blows my mind. Didn't know this existed, and I'm definitely going to keep my eye out for more of these editions. I have this and Wizard of Oz. And yeah, I'm going to definitely continue with the audiobooks and see how far I can get. Yeah, so thank you to everyone out there in the booktube universe who have mentioned this book over and over again. And keep having read-alongs and all that, because finally I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna get it done and over with and just read this book so I can take it off my list, not realizing that y'alls were right. Y'alls were right, okay? So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave this here. I've got a lot of really long clips, so I apologize. I hope you've enjoyed watching me kind of break down this book, and I don't know if I'll do any more vlogs like this. If you've liked these vlogs, this and the Nancy Drew vlog, I definitely can look into doing more of that kind of thing because it's definitely helped me kind of dissect each book as I've been reading them. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you like these specific book reading vlogs, and I will definitely see what I can do in the future. But yeah, until next time, I hope you're all reading something great, taking care and staying safe. And as always, you all know how it goes. Happy reading. Bye.